Welcome, welcome. So thank you guys for showing up today. I know your time is valuable. I really know that a lot of you guys are getting, well, I'll speak for myself, a little bit of Zoom overwhelm amongst the amazing content. So I do appreciate you guys being here, and I'm going to really try and make this valuable. So yeah, this is about electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic fields and the body electric. And I've prepared a little presentation for you. You might not know who I am, so I'm going to quickly describe my background very, very quickly, just so you have a bit of context as to how I got into this field about 9 years ago now. So like most people in holistic health and healing, I do come with my own story of how I healed myself. That tends to be a commonality across the board with anyone who, Dave Richmond's on a plane. Wow. That goes to show how powerful the EMFs are. In a good way, sometimes technology can be amazing when we use it well. So yeah, most people in the holistic space do come with their own personal story of healing, and I come with mine. And I had pretty bad eczema for 30 years. I was always given these topical treatments and standard treatments and immunosuppressants, and it never worked. Long story short, when I was in my early 30s, I was studying my dad's stroke and what led to it, and it was ultimately chronic inflammation. And I changed my lifestyle, my habits, my eating habits, my mental and emotional well-being, and it went away. And it's all about chronic inflammation. So I helped other people do this the same. I've helped other people reverse lots of different illnesses by focusing primarily on chronic inflammation, which is really an indication that the immune system is under some kind of attack. Chronic inflammation is basically that. It's as if your immune system protects you from some kind of foreign or alien intruder. I've got a graphic here for you. So here I talk about causes, problem, and symptoms. And I'm really trying to simplify things as much as I possibly can, because I think a lot of things are overcomplicated in the main kind of paradigm of how we learn stuff. But the body doesn't have to be that complicated, in my opinion. And chronic inflammation is really an indication that there's some kind of physical threat or perceived threat on the body. The immune system goes into some kind of defense, and it's designed to protect you. It's a very healthy immune response. If it didn't happen, we'd die. So we've got to be grateful for it. It's just that when this happens again and again and again, the immune system becomes overactive, and it therefore becomes less able to deal with any additional threat on the body. And that's really why a lot of people are suffering right now, or it's actually the minority of people who are suffering right now with COVID. The vast majority are asymptomatic, and a very small selection of people suffer for, quite severe symptoms, and then they get better again. But people who really, really suffer are already chronically inflamed. They are pre-inflamed. In the words of Dr. Mark Hyman, who's a leading pioneer in functional medicine. So what comorbidities means and what pre-existing conditions means is these people are pre-inflamed. So their immune system is overactive already. It's already trying to deal with all kinds of current levels of toxicity in your body. So and then we have symptoms depending on our genetic code. So for me, it was eczema for 30 years. For someone else, it might be asthma or diabetes or high blood pressure or gout or arthritis. There's all names of symptoms. So that is a quick background into how I got into this. So I got rid of my eczema, and I've helped people reverse not just skin conditions, but all kinds of conditions since 2015 now. And in 2017, this is where we get into the content today. I experienced something which got me very interested in the body electric. And this is really how, like I had my story of healing eczema, like my dad's stroke that I realized was avoidable, and his asthma was reversible. It has since 12. I realized that my immune system was compromised, and I was convinced something was going on. I often have this kind of intuitive knowing that something's going on. If my body isn't behaving like it should do, something's going on. And I had a cold for over a month, and it might sound trivial, but I never get sick, and rarely get sick. I say that I've just come out of salmonella poisoning this week, but I don't normally get sick, and I was really quite surprised that I couldn't shake off a cold. So I went to go and see someone. I went to go and see a practitioner, that I was highly recommended by a very good friend of mine who also works in holistic health and is very, very versed in all of these things. And I had an amazing session with him. And he, oh, by the way, before that, I was thinking, I was pretty anti-inflammatory diet, anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Like I was super active. I was doing yoga, I was working out, I was running, I was just active. I was in LA, so I was getting loads of sunlight. I was grounded, lots of stuff. As far as I was concerned, I was doing everything right. And I was comparing this, by the way, to a time at a Tony Robbins event in 2017 or 2015, when I went to a room of 2,700 people, an event called Date with Destiny. And most people in the room got sick because they weren't really looking after their bodies. And I was one of two people that I know of out of 2,700 people who didn't get sick. So and probably there was probably more than that, but of that I know of, and that's all about anti-inflammatory living. So when I couldn't shake off a cold, I was really confused. So this practitioner tested me. He muscle tested me using applied kinesiology. And my favorite healer's just walked in the room, who lives next door. She also uses applied kinesiology. She's all over this stuff as well. She's been doing electromagnetic clearings for 20 years. Anyway, it's just interesting how she just came in at that particular moment. So this practitioner in LA, south of LA in Costa Mesa, tested me. And he very quickly told me that 3 of my teeth had become depolarized. And this was brand new to me. And I did not know what he was talking about. And he said, where you're holding your cell phone, the radiation from your phone has depolarized 3 teeth on the side of your mouth where you hold your phone. So I've just put a silly picture of me there just to demonstrate it. But this was quite new. I had heard of EMFs before. I had been to the Truth About Cancer Live Symposium in 2016, and there were several talks on the effects of electromagnetic radiation on our cells and causing cancer and causing other illnesses as well. And they were talking about pockets of people with cancer all over the world, actually, where there was high levels of electrosmog, and people would be moved away from these areas and they would heal their cancer. And then they showed images of various people, like brain tumors. And then one I'll never forget is an image of a woman, thermography, and she held a phone in her bra, and there were 3 tumors in line with the phone where she used to hold her phone. And that's what EMFs can do to us. And it's a form of toxicity that most people aren't aware of. So coming back to my treatment, the practitioner said, well, what we're going to do is use lasers because the polarity on your teeth has flipped. So if you can imagine a battery when you've got a positive charge and a negative charge, our cells are normally net negatively charged. They're actually charged between -20 and -25 millivolts. If you talk to the author of Healing is Voltage, which is Dr. Jerry Tennant. This is one of my favorite books now. He's, I'll come on to this in a second, and I'll go more into this in a second. But on a simple level, think of it like this. Our cells are net negatively charged. That's how they function. If they become positively charged, they're in dis-ease. And the polarity in my teeth had flipped. He also told me that your teeth act like circuit breakers in your body. We are basically wired up like a house. We have a number of different electrical circuits with different organs on different circuits. And he said that what's happened is these 3 teeth are connected to my immune system, mainly my intestines, where 70 to 80% of the immune system is located. So what he did is he used lasers on my teeth on 2 sessions to flip the polarity back, and my cold went away. And that was my kind of gateway, if you like, into the body electric. I didn't change anything I was eating. I didn't change anything else. I just had these lasers. It was scalar energy lasers on my teeth. So that got me very interested into the body electric. And then I started to just do some more and more research like I tend to do. So just before I carry on, I just want to talk about this interesting report. This was 1975, the Defense Intelligence Agency. They published this, which is the biological effects of electromagnetic radiation and microwaves, Eurasian communist countries. I've just put that out there because there's some clear evidence that this has been known for a very long time. And it's not actually that long report. And I have a link to this report on my site, by the way. I've got links to 6,000 reports and articles on my site on the effects of electromagnetic radiation on our cells. And by the way, most of these were done prior to the launch of 4G to 5G, or rather the launch of 5G and the upgrade from 4G to 5G. So there's tons and tons of research already in the paradigm of information, not in the mainstream, but it's already out there, just not in the mainstream media. It's not in government's not talking about it. And I won't go too much into why that happens. I've gone down that rabbit hole as well. It's interesting. Let's just say that.
If you recall, there was recently in some embassies, there were illnesses that the American staff there suffered, and they figured or presumed that it was from a radio wave type of assault.
Oh, wow.
That was within the last 6 months or a year. There have been a couple of incidents where they determined that was probably intentional.
Interesting. Was that in the mainstream?
It made its way into the network news.
Oh, wow.
Came to a solution, but it did surface as an issue on two separate occasions. I think two separate places where I forget which countries, but I suspect there was a Soviet or Russian influence, and maybe Cuba also. Come to think of it,
interesting.
So
yeah, that's a whole other conversation, because these EMFs have been used as weapons before, and now they've just launched 5G, and I went very loud on this in 2019 when it launched. I was in England at the time, and they launched 5G without a single biological test of safety. I'll show you some links in a moment. And I could not believe what I was experiencing. A year or two before that, I'd seen a newspaper article about how in London was just going to become this giant antennae with all these metal structures used as towers, basically 5G towers, because the proximity for 5G has to be much closer and the much higher frequency waves. And I could not believe what I was seeing, because I'm already so familiar with the body electric, and they're about to do this. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I went very loud, and I created a group on Facebook, and it's got thousands of people in it now, on how to protect yourself from electromagnetic fields. It's real, and it's huge in the biohacking community, like the likes of Dave Asprey and Bulletproof and Dr. McCullough, and so many people who are on top of this now. And a lot of people are protecting themselves from electromagnetic fields because they know about the effects on their cells. So quick explanation at a fundamental level on our cells. So we are 50 trillion cells. According to Bruce Lipton, he uses the figure of 50 trillion cells. He's a cell biologist. He was cloning stem cells in the 60s before it became cool. And he really knows what he's talking about. In fact, he's one of the pioneers in the field of epigenetics, which talks about how it's the environment in the body that signals the genes, and how it's not the genes that trigger the illness. It's how the environment in the body signals the genes. So it really makes us, by the way, epi means above. Epigenetics means it's like the software, and then you've got the hardware, which is the genes. So the epigenetics influences the hardware, which is the genes. So we can influence our gene expression by changing the environment in our body. So he's been talking about that for decades, and it's only just starting to reach the main. In fact, it's not going to be in the mainstream for probably another decade, but it's been around for at least a couple of decades officially. Cell biologist Bruce Lipton, with 50 trillion mini-me's, every one of these cells creates different organ systems. It makes up every single part of the body: organs, muscles, tissues, bones, joints, ligaments, everything, brain, heart, everything. And all of those cells are electrically charged. According to Jerry Tennant, who wrote Healing is Voltage, there's a brilliant presentation I can share with you at the end. I've also done a kind of a simplified version as well on YouTube, which I can share with you. So according to him, And by the way, he's got this, he's a trained medical doctor. He's MD, MDH, whatever that is, PSC, lots of qualifications, basically. He's pioneering this like you wouldn't believe. So he got very, very sick, and he was bedbound for a very long time. And he started studying cell biology. He was trained in the conventional medical route, and nothing was working for him. All these drugs, it's the same story whenever you talk to anyone who's healed themselves. They're like, none of the drugs worked, so to go and try something else over here. I have a podcast, by the way, I interview people who reverse incurable illnesses. And it's always the same story. I tried this. And eventually went, okay, none of that works. Now we have to go over here to the health and holistic and healing space, which I don't like to call alternative health. It's just health. So Dr. Jerry Tennant, he got sick, and he realized that cells are all electrically charged. And he very quickly found, by the way, the reason he found this was because our cells run at a pH between 7.35 and 7.45. That's the pH of our blood. If we go out of that, we actually become toxic in some form. So he expressed this in terms of voltage using a logarithmic scale. And he realized that every cell functions between -20 and -25 millivolts. So the result was, okay, cells need energy to function. They need energy to work. And that was a huge revelation for him, because he didn't look at the body like this at all. And what do cells need to thrive? First and foremost, they require oxygen. Secondly, water, clean, purest of water money can buy, not contaminated, preferably some form of electrolyzed water. I'm a giant fan of Kangen. That's what I've got here. If that's of interest, let me know. 3, we need nutrients, so we can fuel the body at the cellular level and, take out the toxins, eat real food that nature intended, sticking to the nature codes as much as we possibly can, avoiding anything that's been tampered with by man, avoiding GMO, corn and soy, anything that's GMO, we want to be very mindful of, particularly corn, soy, and cottonseed, and then there's mutagenicized wheat, but I'm not going to talk about too much of that for now. The 4th fuel, if you like, which is a fundamental requirement, is waste disposal. If we can't eliminate waste, toxins build up. And one of the toxins we're talking about is EMFs, actually, and the mind is the governor. This is how our cells kind of work. The brain, this is how the placebo effect works. The brain is the governor of all of these cells. So we have the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. I can't go too much into that now, and I don't want to overload you, but that's like a very, very fundamental look at cell biology. Now we know that every cell is electrically charged. We can kind of zoom back in again, or zoom out, whichever way you look at it. And we know that the heart pumps. Every time the heart pumps a beat, we know that's an electrical impulse. That's every time a muscle pulsates like that, that's an electrical impulse. The brain, thoughts are all electrical impulses. Emotions can even be measured in terms of their frequency. David Hawkins has done this. Every time you move a limb or take a breath, that's everything in the body is electrical, everything. So when the electricity is flowing properly, everything's functioning optimally. And the more and more we start to understand that the body is so electrical, it's more electrical than anything else, almost. I was going to say than biological, but that would make no sense. It's certainly more electrical than it is pharmaceutical. And we need to be mindful of that. So the body doesn't get sick because of a pharmaceutical drug deficiency. It gets sick because there's low voltage going to an organ. That's another one of Jerry Tennant's things. A characteristic of all chronic illness is low voltage to an organ. If you can remember that, this little snippet, by the way, when I saw this presentation on healing is voltage, it clarified everything I'd learned about health and wellness over 7 years prior in like one 45-minute video. And I used to be an electrician, by the way, which is probably another reason why I can understand this pretty well. But low voltage to an organ basically means not enough power getting to an organ. And if we can understand that, instead of going, I've got a genetic disease, or I've got a genetic illness, or I have X, Y, or Z, it's not enough power getting to that organ. That's the main reason. And it's also, it's like a drop in voltage. And ultimately, it's the under-oxygenation of our cells that creates dis-ease. So I've already talked about that. Another part about the body electric is we have battery packs, much like you'd have in a flashlight in your language. We have muscles, which are the main largest battery packs in the body. And then we have cell membranes, which is it's like a capacitor around the cell. And then we have inside the cell, that's the mitochondria. And then we have the DNA. We know that with that spiral, with that perfect Fibonacci spiral, wherever we have that, we have the implosion of scalar energy. So something very interesting to know about the battery packs, by the way, is muscles are piezoelectric, which means that when we work out, when we move, when we exercise, we are literally charging the body. They emit electrons just by moving. So that's pretty amazing. We don't need to go too much more into this. By the way, I've just covered a lot. Does anyone have any questions?
I made a note of with respect to teeth being like circuit breakers. Suppose you have dentures.
Yeah. I mean, dentures are replacements, aren't they?
Well, it depends. It could be an individual crown or something of that sort. But if you have a complete denture,
but the tooth has been extracted.
Correct.
Yeah. You know what? That's actually much better than an infected root canal or mercury, because it's actually the surrounding area around the teeth.
The placement.
Exactly. I think I have a diagram for you in a second on the teeth. Something we just need to know about being in dis-ease. Cells, the voltage needs to go to minus 50 millivolts to repair any damaged cell. And if it can't, then we're stuck in dis-ease. So if anything, if there's an additional threat, if there's toxins, if there's insufficient cell fuel, toxins are just, the main toxin we're talking about today is EMFs. But if there's anything else like that, mercury, GMOs, glyphosate, teeth infections, any of that stuff can stop the electrical flow or the flow of electrons around the body or on specific circuits. So that's just a snippet on the body electric. This is a tooth chart, by the way.
I have a question. Two questions, actually. One, it sounds like the way that you're talking about electrical flow through the body is reminiscent of traditional Chinese medicine, talking about flow of qi and acupuncture. But from my research, the experiments they've done around qi and acupuncture show that it's not actually an electrical effect. Like, it doesn't show up on a voltmeter, but it's something related. Like, there's certain things that you can do with qi that manifest electrical effects and certain things not. Wondering if you knew anything about that. That's question number one.
Yeah, I mean, there are absolutely similarities here, and Dr. Jerry Tennant does relate to the Chinese meridian system. There's different ways of measuring voltage in the body, and he's got a number of devices, in fact, in his program. I'd be interested to see that research, because you can measure the voltage in different circuits.
Right.
So certainly the circuits to which he is referring, and he does compare this with the Chinese meridian system. So it just might be a different way of measuring things that compare with your research, possibly.
I will drop you the book and the set of scientific papers in the chat or on WhatsApp.
Awesome. I don't doubt you. And I can compare it with the devices that he uses.
Mm-hmm.
All of these teeth. Oh, by the way, when I have a client and they tell me they have some kind of symptom, let's use the idea of type 1 diabetes. And this was recent. I was thinking, are there any teeth in his mouth affected by root canals, mercury, anything, cavitations? And we found he had 4 metal fillings, 2 of which were on the 2 pancreas circuits. So they were, I can't remember offhand which ones they were, but here can you see at the bottom, you got the pancreas here, stomach and pancreas. And then where's the other pancreas? Here, and here's the other pancreas, top left. So Type 1 diabetes is when the pancreas isn't secreting enough insulin, doesn't produce enough insulin, or it stops producing insulin. So you have to take insulin externally. So type 1 diabetes, when developed in life, is an autoimmune disease, which normally stems from leaky gut. And ultimately, then it drops the voltage to the pancreas and the immune system attacks its own cells. But from a body electric standpoint, it's low voltage to the pancreas. So what I did is I said, right, let's have a look at the tooth chart to see if there's any correlation between your pancreas and your teeth that have been affected. So we did. We found a very distinct correlation. So he had those worked on. And within a few days, he started noticing some shifts in his energy, still working on the reversal of type 1 diabetes, but it was a profound difference that he noticed. So this can often be, if the thyroid is on the same circuit, or there's a documentary called the Root Cause documentary, and they talked about, I can't remember the statistic they gave, but women who had root canals and breast cancer, there was a very, very strong correlation between root canals and breast cancer on the same side of the mouth. And that's because of the body electric. The infection can also drop down into that area of the body, but it also drops the electrical charge as well.
Is type 2 diabetes, I'm sorry, is type 2 diabetes different, not the pancreas, something else?
Yeah, nothing's wrong with the pancreas in type 2 diabetes. It's in type 2, it's when your cells are insulin resistant. So the pancreas is still firing, but the cells become resistant and can't receive the hormone insulin because it's normally a result of excessive carbohydrates and sugar and chronic inflammation and trans fats. And, it's often a result of diet and lifestyle. Let's just say it like that. So when we focus on detoxifying the body I always start with diet because it's easiest. But yeah, there absolutely can be links with this, Alan. It's just not directly, it wouldn't be directly linked with the pancreas in type 2 because there's nothing actually supposedly wrong in type 2 diabetes with the pancreas itself. It's our cells. So we need to basically, they're surrounded by fat. They're not able to receive the hormone insulin. That's called insulin resistance. So there can absolutely be relationships though with the body electric. And in fact, there are. It's just not in the same way. So we want to have optimal flow. Trapped emotions and trauma also block the flow of electricity. But I wanted to start talking really now about, that's a presentation I can share with you much more about the body electric. I now want to share with you some links on my site because now you have more of an understanding of the fact that we are electrical. I wanted that to be clear. That was quite a long introduction to saying we're electrical. I'm trying to say, just in case you don't know. This is my website with about 6,000 links to EMF articles, by the way. So on this website, I've got a few interesting videos, very short videos that you can have a look at.
Is it neilcannon.com or something else?
No, I couldn't buy that, sadly. VitalitySecret.com. That's the name of my book, The Vitality Secret. And if you go to vitalitysecret.com/EMFs, you can see a few of these short snippets. And this is the one I just want to first play you because we're all guys here.
Cancer is not the main concern that I have. I'm really concerned about sperm count and about effects on pregnancy. How many of you know that 1 in 6 American couples is unable to have a child when they want to? How many of you know that last year, the birth rate in this country dropped the most that it ever has in recent history, 3% in a single year?
People look at the sperm in people use cell phones and the sperm, usually sperm swim, and they swim straight. But if you expose them to radio frequency, mobile phone waves, it's really circle.
Studies have been done here in Australia, taking sperm from healthy men. And one test tube gets exposed to cell phone radiation, and one test tube is not exposed to mobile phone radiation. And then the results are evaluated. And this is a measure of vitality. We measure how well the sperm swim. This is a measure of motility. This is a measure of mitochondrial DNA damage. They have 3 times as much damage on their DNA if they had been exposed to mobile phone radiation. The data on that are rock solid. Cell phones can damage sperm quantity and quality.
Your embryo, your uterus in the fetus, where your child is developing for the first 100 days, in the ovaries, the eggs do not have that protection. So they are at maximum risk from radiation. And for the first month or so, you wouldn't even know you were pregnant. You wouldn't even be taking precautions. That is the main danger area. So you give birth to a daughter, but her ovaries are now contaminated. She may be normal, she may be genetically damaged.
I just wanted to really share the one about sperm there because it's useful to know. And this is one which kind of shows a blood sample when exposed to a 5.
In front of the smart meter.
Do you know what a smart meter is? So in England, smart meters are being used to measure gas and electricity usage. So people know how much to be billed. So they've gone from this analog system to a digital system, and these smart meters aren't even plugged in. It's like having an iPhone in your, like a super powered iPhone. So this is a live blood analysis. And one of my friends, and I'll talk about in a moment, who's got one of these companies to protect you from your phone. He's got very similar blood samples done on himself, and he's exposed blood to cell phone radiation, 4G, 5G, and then protected by his thing.
1 foot in front of the smart meter. And in every single case, the human energy field was obliterated as they stood in front of the smart meter.
So yeah, they can measure there's 2 things going on. They're measuring the human energy field and now the blood as well.
See is normal cells, and the structure of the cells is intact and sound. Sample 1, you can see a lot of degradation of the cells. The cell walls have been broken, and you see changes in the cells, which are called mycoplasma. It shows a mutation to the cell.
Just 2 minutes.
The second sample, we see a different type of degradation to the cell membranes. You can see a corrugation here. This is called bottle cap formation, and it's known that this occurs due to oxidation or exposure to free radicals. So this third subject, when we did her sample, she had to be pulled away from the meter after 45 seconds because she complained about an increasingly severe headache. And here you see a phenomenon called rouleau, where the red blood cells are stacking up.
Sorry, you saw those images at the end. They're my next thumbnails. So that's pretty indicative of what's happening with the blood. I've got a few other videos here. They're just little snippets from the documentary. Let me just share this with you.
Thank you for having this hearing.
2 minutes. This
5G,
is,
as you well know, also
on 5G.
frequency waves that don't travel as far and will rely on a network of hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of small cell sites. And the question then is, are there any health implications, any public safety implications to those additional sites that are likely to be located close to homes, schools, workplaces, and closer to the ground? Correct?
Correct, Senator. Yes.
So my question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Berry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities, we think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
Anybody else know of industry commitments to back research, fund it, support it, to ascertain scientifically the health effect?
No, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of blind here, as far as health and safety is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so there's lots and lots of links here. Now let's talk about protection. Does anyone have any comments, by the way, on what I just shared with you? Yeah, Marcus.
How quickly do cells go back to normal?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I think there's definitely a correlation between the length of exposure and the duration of exposure and cell damage, and our bodies are always regenerating.
Right.
So it's like a balance. You know, if we're in a Wi-Fi zone constantly 24/7 and not protecting ourselves, not getting grounded, which is one of the best things we can do to protect ourselves from EMFs, we're going to get more damage. But if we just have a little bit of exposure every now and again, we do generate new cells every day. But we just want to be really minimizing this as much as we can. Particularly as we've just gone from 4G to 5G, and we've just had this massive change in exposure. And on that particular point, yeah. So Marcus, I don't know how long it takes for cells to get back to normal. Is my honest answer to that question.
The regenerative mechanism, and if that's affected, they might say, well, it's just culling the herd of cells that are most susceptible. Yeah. But what role does it play in minimizing or the decreasing the regenerative process?
I see the EMF as a toxin, similar but not similar to other toxins, in that we can, detoxify these toxins, and providing we get enough fuel and we get grounded and we protect ourselves. Believe it or not, vitamin C is one of the best things that we can do to protect from oxidative stress as a result of EMFs. And there's lots of supplements we can take to protect ourselves, and protective mechanisms. I don't know the honest answer to the question though, and I'd be very interested to find that out, Marcus. How long it would take to regenerate, because I'm sure they do regenerate. Just like, if we're exposed to any form of of toxicity, our cells do regenerate, and we do get new cells every single day from infinite intelligence. This book here is called The Invisible Rainbow, and it's written by a scientist called Arthur Furstenberg, and he has this is brilliantly reviewed. As you can see, 1,400 ratings here, and the reviews are from scientists, from PhDs, from very, very reputable people. #1 in physics and electricity, #1 in magnetism, and point is, very good book. He makes the claim that preceding every pandemic, going back 220 years, was an increase in electromagnetic radiation. Quite the claim, but a very interesting claim, knowing that we've just gone from 4G to 5G. So how do we protect ourselves? This is one company, and that's called LAMS. And now you know about the cell phone, and sperm counts. Let me just play this to you from this interview.
Or energy or anything like that?
I just asked him if there's been any tests, because this company has created underwear for men to protect us, our balls, our reproductive organs from cell phone radiation. And I asked him if there's been any studies done on customers, or he's done any studies on customers getting results from wearing the underwear. And he said this.
A few of our clients who have done testing on themselves, one of them specifically that I've got in mind went to test his sperm before starting wearing lens and after. And he found results that were actually consistent with the study from Dr. McKinney. His sperm count actually effectively doubled, which was kind of crazy. But obviously, this is one person. If you wanted to make it an actual study, you'd need a lot more people.
I just thought that was interesting to just see, even if it's one person, if one person can achieve something, I think a lot of people can achieve it. That's kind of how I look at it. If one person can reverse metastasized stage 4 cancer, I want to find out how they did it. So there's this. Oh, can you still see my screen?
No, see you.
I'm seeing you.
Oh, let me put you back.
Whoever's talking, not me. I think my recording or voice won't show up on what I'm capturing.
So this company is Omnia. So Omnia Balance. If you go to this link here on my website, it was on EMFs. This company Omnia, I've got links to various interviews here. They have created a device for your phone with a little sticker. And by the way, this is so much better now, 2 years later. They've got this sticker that doesn't just protect your phone from the EMFs, it harmonizes the frequencies, and you can actually structure your water with your phone, which is phenomenal. He's partnered with this Einstein-like scientist, and he's so quantum, it's ridiculous. That's a weird thing to say, but he's a quantum scientist, put it that way. He's all about quantum energy. And they've done a lot of studies, including blood studies, live blood analysis. They've done it when exposed to different types of exposure on your cell phone, whether it's just being on the phone, talking away, or watching a YouTube video is apparently where we use most data. I mean, that's kind of obvious. We're getting the biggest amount of download when we're watching YouTube videos on our phones. So they've looked at live blood samples in different environments, different types of exposure, and they've done the blood samples with and without the Omnia sticker, and the results are pretty categoric. Let me talk to you now about Somavedic that I talked about last week. So by the way, LAMS, this is the website, and if you go here, it's just getlams.com, and if you use the discount code Vitality, you do get a discount of, I believe it's 10% off. But they've got not just underwear, they've got all of those things. They've got caps and hats, and they now have, I think they said during the interview that they're working on women's underwear as well, because women do get affected as well. And then the other one I wanted to share with you is Somavedic. So Somavedic is a company that I was introduced to at the London Health Optimization Summit a couple of years ago. And I met with this guy very quickly after their talk because I was so blown away by what he was sharing. I just had to interview him. So what they have developed is this device, which looks like this. This is actually the one I have, and it protects your home in a bubble of 30 meters. So that's central to the bubble, up, down, sideways, etc. And that can protect you from all forms of Wi-Fi. And the way they discovered this was an accidental discovery. Some of the best inventions were accidental, and that's what they found. So what they found was it was originally designed to help people in geopathic zones. Geopathic zones means where there are tectonic plates beneath the surface or underground rivers over which there is some form of radiation. So people in these areas were getting sick from radiation poisoning. So they created this device to protect people in geopathic zones. In 2011, I believe it was, they discovered that the same technology can protect people from Wi-Fi and cell phone radiation. And then they just got on it and started to develop more and more of them. So not only does it protect your body, by the way, it harmonizes the effects of EMFs in your home, it also structures the water, much like Dr. Emoto's device has proven to, well, sorry, Dr. Emoto experiments have shown. Are you familiar with that, Dr. Emoto? You guys?
No.
Okay, let me just.
I know all about that. Messages hidden in water, or the hidden message of water, or something like that.
Yes. So it's this is all the science of the Somavedic. They've done live blood samples as well. Any company that creates technology like this needs to show live blood analysis under different types of conditions. If they can't, then it's not very useful. Let me see if I can find the stuff on the water. They had this on the website, structured water. There we go. So Dr. Emoto found that when water crystals were exposed to different types of emotions, by the way, water is way more than we think it is. It contains energy. And that's quite a giant thing to say if that's brand new to you. But what they know is when water crystals are exposed to different types of emotions, different types of crystals are formed. If you have, if they're exposed to emotions of hate and anger and fear, there's no crystals, much like on the left. And if they're exposed to emotions of love and appreciation, gratitude, you have crystals like on the right. So this is actually showing what this device does. It actually harmonizes the frequencies of the water, much like different emotions can with the Dr. Emoto experiments, which is, it just blows my mind because this is really next level stuff. This is, by the way, this was featured in a documentary called What the Bleep Do We Know? And there's another documentary called The Secret of Water. Both of those are on Gaia, which is my Netflix. I don't have a Netflix account, I have a Gaia account. And they're both free on Gaia. And they're really amazing. They really go into the depths of what water is really about. And given that water is our number 2 cell fuel and we're made up predominantly of water, we want to be having the purest of water money can buy, and preferably structured water. So this device structures your water. It actually creates these lovely, beautiful snowflake-like crystals. By the way, Dr. Emoto also showed that when water is exposed to different types of music, the crystals were very different. So the crystals were either hardly, there's no kind of snowflake-like structure when exposed to the music like thrash metal or dark music. But when exposed to, say, Beethoven or Mozart, it would be these beautiful snowflake-like crystals that you can see on the right. I'm giving so much information, your brains might explode soon. But it's the point about, sorry?
No, vibratory, it's vibrations.
Vibrations, yes.
That are being harmonized.
Exactly. So that's another one of my favorites. So I've got 3 things that I recommend to my clients and my customers. They are LAMS, the website is Get Lambs, Somavedic, and Omnia. And you could use Vitality if you want for discounts on all of them. There's obviously other companies out there. They're just the ones that I prefer to use and I have myself. So I do have a longer video here talking about the body electric. It's 30 minutes simplified Jerry Tennant on the body electric. And then all of these videos showing very short snippets, but very poignant snippets of a documentary that I just can't stand the name of the documentary, but what they did, the research they did was amazing.
The Summervedic, interestingly, it's fascinating that would cover and harmonize 2,800 square feet. But is it a plug-in device also, interestingly?
It is. Yeah, that's a good point. It is. It is a plug-in device. So they amplify these minerals and stones and rocks, and they use electricity to do that. That's such a good point. I've not even thought of that. I think that form of electricity is way less harmful than, obviously, we don't want to be sleeping next to a plug socket or a terminal of plugs, but we want to be, these cell phone EMFs are, I would argue, are far more severe.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that is a good point. I like that point.
Well, that electrical source is aligned, I guess, as it's traveled to the device, which is perhaps decoding or aligning even further, and then I guess it's emitting a wave of some sort, as opposed to analyzing and neutralizing. I don't know. It's almost like you put in.
Yeah, they use the word harmonize. So it must be emitting a wave in order to harmonize the other waves.
You know, certain car exhaust systems have a microphone that sense the noise that the exhaust system is making, and then generates a counter harmonizing, offsetting wavelength to make the exhaust sound better or minimize.
Interesting.
Even on large industrial jackhammers or other things as well. It's an interesting process.
Do you know about sound healing and resonance healing, like the Rife machine used in the early 1900s to heal cancer?
I know. I would imagine. I'm not. It just makes sense to me that it's a vibratory world that's you're dealing with it at a very fine incremental, the micro level, but micro and macro, as above, so below. These same must apply.
Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And the more that we tap into that and understand anything that affects our own energy field and our own energy in our bodies is going to affect not just our bodies, but everything around us as well. And there's the Royal Raymond Rife in the early 1900s found that he could use a frequency to get rid of cancer tumors, because he would match the frequency of the cancer tumor and it would be obliterated. It wouldn't be instant. It takes a number of treatments. And he found, it's a very small sample size. It was only 16, but he found 100% success in all of them. And then all of his studies were squashed or quashed by the American Medical Association. As you know, I think a lot of us know that there's been some dodgy dealings in the last 110 years. So there's lots of stuff around frequency healing the body that's been suppressed and it's starting to come back into the limelight at the moment. There's a lot of technology that's coming out now. And
I would imagine Elon Musk might tout if he added an accessory to the Teslas that created harmonized. I would, if he did that, there'd be a whole added level of incentive for people to buy Teslas.
That's such a good point. I've often thought that about Teslas, about any battery operated car. They're like giant EMF devices. But I guess all cars now have a lot of electricity in them, and it's
what
just
if they given thought to neutralize, harmonize, or optimize that source through something like the
Somavedic.
Somavedic.
It's a really good idea. They should totally do that.
Yeah,
they should make their home into a car into a healing device.
The Vitality Secret.
Awesome idea. I've often thought about how I'm going to productize my business. I'm definitely wanting to focus something around this field, around EMFs. I'm feeling very cool to it for sure. Have some kind of product. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, and I'll preface this by saying that right now I'm wearing a pendant from Tachyon Technologies, which is supposed to limit the name of the product is 5G freedom, and it's supposed to counteract, electromagnetic radiation and all kinds of other things away from you. When I've looked into this, the method of action is never clear. It's clear that there's something happening related to electromagnetic radiation and various kind of cellular processes and emotional processes, but like to say, okay, the way that if you had a circuit, you could say this causes this and this causes this, and you can kind of break down to any arbitrary scale. That seems to be a generally open question. It's more like there's a gesture of this seems to hurt us, so let's find things to make this hurt us less, which is legitimate to me. I'm wondering if you've seen a particular method of action, like why things work, or if that just extends to a level of technicality that maybe is on your website and is better for you not to explain right now. I can deal with like lots of math and science and charts and stuff like that. I'm into that stuff. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very into that stuff.
When you say method of action, do you mean in terms of measuring the effects of EMFs on our cells or our systems, or?
Yeah, here's what I would say. It's like you have a you can measure very precisely what's going on in a very simple electrical circuit, and there's a coherent theory as to why that is. And there's a coherent theory based on kind of standard like circuit electrical engineering. But then when you get down to a quantum level, let's say, well, it turns out that electrons aren't flowing like a water current. That's not actually what's going on at a microscopic level. They're actually flowing very slowly, but there's something about how energy is emitting and like electron flow, because like things being in the having a velocity and a definite place is like not really clear. But you can, through, and I actually haven't studied this, but I'm guessing that you can, through like quantum electrodynamics, like be able to recover what we all do in like, you know, college signal processing and that kind of thing, and what any electrician would do in terms of like talking about the circuit in terms of like voltage, resistance, that kind of thing, without getting into those details. And so when I say method of action, I'm wondering if there's like, we understand why it does this to cells. We understand in a very deep way how cells react. We understand how they recover. We understand what different frequencies, what the effects of different frequencies, like that kind of thing. I guess I'm wondering if there's a full theory, or if we're just at a therapeutic level where it's just like, how do we stop these things from hurting us because they're hurting us?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely been studies on different levels of radiation. So there's a spectrum of radiation, microwave and 5G, and where we are. And it would seem that the closer we are to the frequency of our own cells, that's where we have most damage.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Most away from it, that's when we have less damage.
Okay.
So there's definitely studies done on that, and the person who's pretty good to talk about that is Tim Sanders. I look at it, the way I look at it is kind of from I guess I take a step back and I say, so we're electrical. Let's be mindful. I just look at the blood test. I can see what's happening. It's obvious. Therefore, I want to protect myself. And sperm count, I want to protect myself. In a way, I don't need to know how the car works. I just want to drive to Carbo.
Yeah, got it.
And I just want to get there. So I guess that's where my brain is. I'm less analytical, if you like.
Okay.
But there are links to 6,000 studies on my site,
right,
that you're welcome to peruse.
Oh yeah. Sounds like a treasure trove.
I've put the main site, the main links up there for the main 6 or 7 studies. The $25 million toxicology program was one that really blew my mind. Okay. It was carried out in America, and they carried it out to prove that EMFs do not cause biological damage. And then they found the opposite to be true.
Then they buried it.
So, sorry? And then they buried it. Yeah, then they buried it.
Of course.
We just, that's what happens.
One more question. How has, since implementing some of these, I'm guessing you have LEMS and you have the Somavedic device and you have you've taken various measures. Do you find that there's a powerful qualitative difference to your life? I can say that with this pendant, for instance, I don't know exactly if I haven't measured anything, so I don't know if it's actually doing anything or not. But I do know that before, Zoom used to take me out. I used to be dead tired after sitting and doing computer tasks all day. And now with this, I'm actually not like it's fine. I can do this, and I won't be super tired after like being on a bunch of computer stuff. And I sleep a little bit. I sleep marginally better, but I'm also like you, where I didn't have a lot of symptoms of stuff and I didn't get very sick. So it's hard for me to personally, it's hard for me to measure if I take any particular change in my health. Practice, it's like hard to measure if it's actually doing very much. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, has this changed a whole lot for you?
From my own personal perspective, I'm in Mexico at the moment. My Somavedic is actually in London, which is, I'm going to go back in 2 weeks and grab it. But it's actually with my parents.
Okay.
I think they need it more than I do. There's no 4G here. I'm by the beach. I'm getting grounded every day. Do you sleep grounded?
I don't have any. I mean, maybe this pendant does it, but I don't have any other like grounding devices or like grounding mats or anything like that.
Grounding is one of the best things that we can do right now, because the ground is like a sea of negatively charged electrons.
Yeah,
I should have put that in there.
Dr. Bruce, did he mention that also? I think it came up in some conversation.
I asked the question when he was talking a few weeks ago, and when I interviewed him, I also asked the same question. And he referenced some peer-reviewed medical research. There's tons of peer-reviewed medical research on grounding now, and there's a book called Earthing that got me into this. In fact, a metal brother bought me it in 2014, and it was one of the main reasons. I've got a few big reasons why I wrote my book. By the way, my book's The Vitality Secret, and I talked about inflammation because of one line because of a number of sources, but in Earthing, they said inflammation is the holy grail of health. If you get rid of inflammation, then you can heal your body. And I was like, right, we need to have a book on that. So, yes, in Earthing, they've done all this peer-reviewed medical research. At the beginning, Clint Ober and Sinatra, the authors, they were getting laughed out of school. They were getting laughed out of universities. Like, what? Grounding? Illness? Go away. And then 10 or 15 years later, after they had done their own experiments, people started to listen. And then they started to do peer-reviewed medical research, and all kinds of symptoms were going away when people were sleeping grounded. So, I said that our cells are negatively charged. The ground and the ocean is like a sea of negatively charged electrons, and we literally absorb them into our body. We can get a voltmeter, and our voltage changes when we are standing on the ground or whether we have rubber on our feet. That's how profound it can be. So I notice, as soon as I always walk barefoot to the beach, and the moment I'm walking, within about a minute of walking, I notice a shift in my energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day, when I had salmonella poisoning, I was just itching to get outside, and I went outside, sat in the sun, put my feet on the ground, and I felt like it might have been psychosomatic, but I felt like my stomach pain just it went to virtually zero within about 30 seconds of having my feet on the ground. I was like, wow, that was fast.
And so the grounding techniques for sleeping, they're techniques to achieve the grounding effect, I presume.
Pillowcases and sheets. So if you go to, I'll show you a link actually. Here's one I made earlier. Oh no, it's gone.
While you're looking, Marcus, you were talking about sleeping. I got from my chiropractor, Pillow-Wise, the type of pillow and I've had others that were okay, but I actually can't wait to go lie down and nuzzle into it. Anyway.
Yes, you can add one more string to your bow, and you can get Earthing sheets or pillowcases, and they're very inexpensive. So these pillowcases, they've got decent reviews. Let's just have a look at this one. They're woven with silver normally, and then you just plug them into your terminal, the Earthing terminal in your plug socket. The third terminal of a plug socket is your Earthing, right?
It's grounding.
Yeah. So earth or grounding, yeah. So you just plug it, you can virtually see it there. that goes into the third terminal of your plug.
It's not showing up.
Oh, you can't see my screen?
I see Amazon.com, but not.
Oh, let me try again.
I see the banner, but I don't see anything underneath it.
Let's try again.
But you Amazon, you plug in any word and you'll be able to find it. There you go. That's good.
So can you see this?
Yes.
I've just got the zoom on there.
Yeah.
That's that circular pin goes in the grounding terminal. So for $30, you can sleep grounded. So for 8 hours or however long you sleep, you're grounded. So there's peer-reviewed medical research talking about the effects of grounding. I've had clients get results just by grounding. One of them had type 1 diabetes and her blood sugars started to balance purely by grounding, nothing else. We didn't start anything with nutrition. You can also get grounding mats.
Yeah.
So if you're at your computer, as we tend to be all day long, something like this, you can just have your feet on it as you're working, so you're grounded. As you can see, this is a massive space now on Amazon. There's all sorts of products.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend something like that as well. And they're very inexpensive, the grounding sheets. Getting in the water, walking on barefoot on grass or soil is the best, or the beach. That's really grounding as well. And you get to be in nature.
Yeah.
And also, if you do Wim Hof breathing, grounding.
There you go.
Right.
Well, it's this circular process.
Exactly.
I
was just going to, sorry.
I'm sorry. My wife with, diabetes elements elevated, and she has a good diet, but a grounding pillow may be something that would.
Try it.
Yeah.
Can't hurt.
No.
$30, and it's all it's doing is mimicking what we'd naturally be doing in nature, and that would be ancestral times, sleeping outside, lying on the ground. Everything I'm teaching is weird because I'm basically saying, let's go back to ancestral times and just
back to basics,
back to nature. Right. Get rid of the toxins and just go back to nature. Stick to the nature codes, and we're going to be grand. Yeah.
This was super helpful and informative. Thank you so much, Neil. I have to reset for a 5:30 call.
I realized we've gone way past the hour.
Yeah, I know. I hope you don't have to pay by the minute on over an hour.
Right. But yeah, it's a great session. Thank you for holding it. And thank you for keeping it going on with even the small space. And no, I'm not going to wait. Tomorrow's Saturday anyway, so there's no off breathing.
I sometimes do a surprise one.
I won't breathe until Monday.
All right.
If you guys give a shout out in the main metal group, that'd be really awesome.
We'll do.
Get more people to these things. I don't market them very well. I tend to market them the same day as I do them, which is
I'm still trying to figure out how to really actually even get to people through the metal environment and get a hold of people. It's but I'm getting better.
Yeah. Are you in the metal WhatsApp group?
I am. No, that's not the same one that you sent me a link to.
No, that's the one.
No, I actually don't know what number I would link up to the metal WhatsApp group with.
Message Jennifer Sellers.
Yeah,
and she'll be able to hook me up.
Yeah, she can add you.
Excellent.
All right, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. I hope it was valuable.
You'll do well. Thank you.
Be well, both.